Thank you so much for the warm introduction. I'm joined on stage by Michael Healy, who is the co-founder of Unit Network. And guys, I'm not sure if you're all familiar with his work, but one thing I really loved about Michael's work is that he's one of the Bitcoin OGs who basically discovered Bitcoin back when it was, I think, still trading at 9 cents. So Michael, from Bitcoin and the WikiLeaks era to getting to co-found Unit Network, tell us about this wild journey. How did you get here?
Yeah, for sure. So it's a pleasure to be here. Thank you so much for the organizers. I think it's a super well-organized event, and it's great to be here in Barcelona. So my name's Michael Healy. I'm half Singaporean, half British. Been building apps and technology for the past 15 years. I got into crypto in 2010, building the app for WikiLeaks. I was very passionate about the mission behind WikiLeaks, offering transparency, access to the documents that WikiLeaks had, so I put the Android app together. The governments froze our bank accounts, Visa, MasterCard, PayPal, donation channels, so we were forced to use Bitcoin. Built one of the early social networks in the UK, grew it to a few million users, sold it in 2013, worked at the third biggest venture capital firm in Europe. We were seed investors in Spotify, and what excites me most about crypto and blockchain was the ability to democratize ownership, right? If you look at how the way most companies in the world work, you look at how businesses distribute value, it's usually held by the founders of companies as well as the early investors. What's really cool about blockchain, crypto assets, tokens, is that everyone can be a stakeholder. So with Unit Network, we've built a blockchain that wants to be the global stock exchange. There's hundreds of millions of companies in the world, there's billions of people, but there's very few people who own these assets or who partake in the value creation. We're really excited to provide a tool where anybody can issue an asset, and the value created from all of these businesses and people can be democratized globally.
Now, Michael, I'm really curious about this from the perspective of the startup or perhaps founders who are here, who are first time hearing about Unit Network. This theme of true ownership really comes out a lot. Why is this important, and why is it important really for startups to build on a basis that can allow this?
For sure. So, creating a startup is very challenging, right? So usually people talk about the difficulties of a founder, how hard fundraising is. If you look at what the internet did to information, it really democratized information. Now, if someone wants access to, some niche information, they search on Google, they go onto Wikipedia. You look at what the smartphone did to access to communication. Regardless of who you are in the world, you have your smartphone, and that gives you easy access to communication. I think the big opportunity for blockchain and crypto is to democratize how capital formation works. There was an earlier panel where people talked about legacy finance or traditional finance, structured products, bonds. I think there's a very small demographic in society that is able to tap into deep financial markets. There's 8 billion people in the world. Most of the world lives outside big hubs like London, New York, Hong Kong, Dubai. They don't understand many of these products that people, on the previous panel talked about. So our mission is, if you want to start a small business in, rural Africa, you're in Eastern Europe, or, I grew up in Singapore, like most of Southeast Asia, right? It's really hard to raise a small amount of capital. I think the big opportunity of ICOs, we saw with NFTs, we saw a little bit with meme coins, was how quickly capital could form. I think the big issue there was no good frameworks for valuing these coins, right? You could see things do a 20x, a 50x, 100x, but I don't think government should introduce this. I think our industry needs to come up with tools and frameworks by which coins are valued. And I think how we're going to do this, it's going to be no different from how companies are valued, based on earnings, based on revenue, based on cash flow. So my big excitement is, people said with the internet, it was all about eyeballs, right? It's how many people you get to look at your website. People said with apps, it's all about downloads, right? Both of these, it moved to being backed by revenue and profit and earnings. Now we see with coins, people don't really talk about revenue or earnings or profit, right? It's all about on-chain revenue, or it's all about liquidity, high market caps. I think our industry is going to progress to where there's real products, real services which generate profit, and these profits are going to be closely tied to token prices. And we're going to be able to look at the top 100 coins and see very real companies and businesses, right? If you look at the early internet, it was maybe gambling, maybe it was porn, maybe it was I guess those are the two main keys. And then there were real businesses that formed on the internet. We saw the same with the smartphone. I think we're at a stage in crypto and blockchain at the moment where we're going to bring on board a whole bunch of entrepreneurs and business people, and they're going to be launching coins. And these coins are going to be backing real businesses. And for me, that's what excites me a lot. Yeah.
I'm definitely very fascinated about that, and there's a lot of other really high-level industry leaders like yourself calling for the need for more balanced tokenomics, sort of a more balanced way to evaluate token beyond just these price hubs, like real revenue, as you've mentioned. Now, one more thing that really fascinates me about Unit Network is that, as you said yourself, Michael, businesses can really do everything here, from raising funds to establishing a business, and to essentially have a blockchain-based business which does provide true ownership to everyone. Can you tell us a bit more about this process?
Yeah, absolutely. So we believe Unit Network is the most powerful tokenization tool. So it takes seconds to create an asset. Whether you have an idea for a business or an existing business, we want to be the global stock exchange. So if you think of NASDAQ, NASDAQ or the London Stock Exchange, those are for the biggest companies in the world. If you're a few $100 million market cap or tens of millions, we want to focus on the hundreds of millions of companies in the world and be the global NASDAQ or the global London Stock Exchange or Hong Kong Stock Exchange. And if you look at something like Binance, or Bitpanda or KX or these crypto exchanges, they're trading crypto assets. What we care most about is real businesses. So if you walk along the street of Barcelona, you'll see businesses all over the place, but none of these businesses have coins, right? So we believe we're the only solution, or one of the few that makes it easy for every business in Barcelona to have a coin and have these coins be backed by earnings and revenue and cash flows. And if you think everyone in the room, right, we probably all have a smartphone, we probably all have a social media account, but we probably don't all have a token yet. But we're convinced that in the next 3 to 5 years, every single person in the room will have a coin. And what this coin will represent is one's future earnings, one's maybe net worth, someone's cash flow, and it will create society where people are more supportive of one another, right? The way money works at the moment is very, it works for a very small minority of people. But we believe that what we're doing at the Unit Network is going to revitalize the economy and really provide a new financial system that works for everyone.
That's certainly something that we need, Michael. And just speaking about tokenization, I feel like when it comes to the current crypto market cycle, it was one of the biggest institutional themes. We've seen large asset managers like BlackRock joining in, launching tokenized products, and basically predicting that everything will be tokenized. What do you think about this? Do you really feel like everything is finding its way on the blockchain in terms of real-world assets?
It's a great question, Zoltan. So, everyone is so crazy and excited about tokenization and RWA, real-world assets. We're so pleased about that. Though we still think that all of what people talk about with tokenization is legacy finance or TradFi wrapped in crypto. So they're trying to sell Wall Street products or traditional financial products to crypto people. What we care most about is the vast majority of this society which is not connected to TradFi yet. So the hundreds of millions of companies, the billions of people around the world, the hundreds of small cities and towns where, TradFi just has no time for. If you're not big enough and you go to Wall Street or you go to the City of London or you go to any financial hub, most of the time you get turned away, right? But one thing I like about crypto, one thing I like about Bitcoin is it's open to anyone. You don't have to, write a minimum check or, I'm an LP in a bunch of funds. The minimum is X amount. And what I love about crypto and blockchain and tokens is it's open for everyone and it really works for everyone. So, at Unit, we want to be the global stock exchange, global exchange for every single asset and business in the world. We make it super easy to create an account. I highly recommend everyone to set up an account on Unit. We'll send you $100 worth of Unit coin. The Unit coin effectively is backed up by the exchange earnings. I was a crowd sale investor in BNB in 2017, and there were so many crypto exchanges. We were like, why do we need another crypto exchange? And what we saw with BNB, it became a pioneer now in pushing centralized exchanges. I think now it might not be clear, to see that every single thing will have a coin, but I think in the next 3 to 5 years, we'll look back and go, yeah, it's pretty obvious. Why wouldn't you want to be an investor in your local businesses? Why wouldn't you want to invest in friends you grew up with and build a very localized portfolio of all the companies that you support? Yeah.
So we're slowly running out of time, but just a quick question to make sure I understand. So you're saying that essentially we have these large institutions who are tokenizing TradFi, but in the background, you are going to be helping small businesses, small business owners, and even cities just slowly come on the blockchain and get a share of that revenue.
Exactly. So every business in the world, the next Google, the next Amazon, you don't want to buy into something when it's super big and going public and you get very little up. So you want to get into stuff a lot earlier. We're also launching 25 different apps. One of them is like an on-chain Airbnb, an on-chain Uber, an on-chain Shopify, a ticketing app, and we're demonstrating what we believe the next generation of companies look like when they're owned by the community, when customers are helping to promote it, to market it. If you're an early user in Instagram or Spotify or Uber, you didn't partake in any upside, right? Maybe you have a cool story if you're the first rider or driver or the first Airbnb host or Airbnb guest. But we believe that the future is democratizing ownership. There was a big theme about DAOs and democratized governance. We think democratized governance is cool, but really democratized ownership is really what's going to change the world. So we'd love to join together on this journey, and I hope you have a great conference, everyone. Thank you.
We will certainly want to follow that along, and I really look forward to the first on-chain Airbnb. Ladies and gentlemen, please give it up to Michael of Unit Network.